They said the mansion could be seen from miles away. A vast stretch of stone and glass perched high above the quiet town of Ravenswood. At night, its windows glowed like watchful eyes staring down at everyone below. Locals called it the house on the hill. Beautiful, yes, but cursed. Inside lived Richard Alden, a reclusive millionaire who made his fortune in real estate and luxury resorts. He had everything, wealth, power, prestige, everything except peace, because in that house lived his twin daughters, and no one could handle them. Over the years, more than 20 nannies had come and gone. Some left after a few days, others in the middle of the night, without explanation, without collecting their pay. One even called the police, claiming she heard voices in the walls. But when officers arrived, they found nothing. No sign of intruders, just the quiet laughter of two little girls echoing down the marble hallway. The twins, Lila and Sophie, were 6 years old now, sweet-faced, polite, almost angelic at first glance. But behind those innocent blue eyes was something no one could understand. And that's when she arrived. Her name was Clara Evans, a woman in her early 30s with calm eyes and a kind smile. She wasn't like the others. Where others trembled, she was steady. Where others gossiped, she listened. She had seen hardship. Something about her silence hinted at a life she never spoke of. When she came for the interview, Mr. Alden barely looked at her resume. He simply said, "If you last 1 month, you'll earn more than most do in a year." Clara nodded. "I'm not afraid of children," she replied softly. He stared at her for a long moment, then said almost to himself, "You will be." That night, Clara climbed the grand staircase with her small suitcase in hand. The walls were lined with old portraits, family members, generations of Aldens staring back at her with cold, painted eyes. As she reached the landing, a faint giggle echoed from the corridor ahead. Two little girls stood there wearing matching white dresses. "Are you the new one?" asked Lila. Clara smiled. "Yes, I suppose I am." Sophie tilted her head. "You'll stay longer than the others?" "I'll try my best," Clara said gently. The girls exchanged a strange look, half amusement, half pity. Then they turned and ran down the hallway, their laughter fading into the distance. Clara stood there for a moment, uneasy. Somewhere deep in the house, a grandfather clock struck 9. And for just a second, she thought she saw movement in one of the portraits, a reflection that didn't quite match her own. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. The mansion creaked and sighed like it was alive. And as Clara entered her room for the first time, she didn't know that this house would test every part of her soul, because the house on the hill had never let anyone leave the same way they came. Clara's first evening in the Alden mansion was unnervingly quiet. Too quiet for a home with children. Dinner was served in a dining hall large enough to host 50 guests, yet only 4 chairs were ever used. 1 for Mr. Alden, 2 for the twins, and 1 at the far end for Clara. The space between them felt like an ocean. The twins ate in silence, their movements perfectly synchronized, cutting, chewing, sipping water at the same exact moment. Mr. Alden barely looked up from his plate. The clinking of silverware was the only sound. Afterward, he rose abruptly. "You'll find everything you need in the East Wing," he said. "The girls go to bed by 8. Don't let them wander after that." Before Clara could ask why, he was already gone, his footsteps fading into the hall like the house itself swallowed him whole. When the clock struck 8, Clara guided the girls upstairs. Their bedroom was beautiful. Soft pink wallpaper, lace curtains, 2 identical beds. But the air felt heavy, as if the room itself was holding its breath. The twins knelt by their beds, whispering what sounded like a prayer, but not one Clara recognized. "What are you saying, sweetheart?" she asked softly. Lila looked up. "It's for Mommy. She listens better at night." Clara smiled uneasily. "Your mother's in heaven, isn't she?" Sophie giggled. "Not always." That night, rain tapped against the windows. Clara sat reading in her room, trying to shake off the unease. The house creaked with age. The sound of old pipes shifting wood, maybe the wind. But then came another sound, a soft knock. 3 gentle taps on her door. She opened it. No one there. Only the long corridor, dimly lit by wall sconces. Somewhere in the distance, a piano note rang out, 1 single key pressed slowly. Then silence. She walked toward the sound, barefoot on cold marble. The melody came again. A few hesitant notes, as if someone small was learning to play. When she reached the parlor, the piano lid was open, keys glimmering in the dark. But the bench was empty. "Girls?" she whispered. No answer. The clock struck 10. The sound echoed through the mansion, deep and hollow. On her way back, Clara passed the portrait hallway again. One painting caught her attention. A woman in a white gown standing beside two little girls. The nameplate beneath read Margaret Alden, 1893. Something about the woman's face looked familiar. Too familiar. When she leaned closer, the glass over the painting fogged slightly, as if someone had breathed from the inside. She stepped back, her heartbeat quickening. Behind her, faint laughter echoed again. Two voices whispering and giggling running down the hall. Clara turned sharply. No one there. She hurried to her room, locked the door, and pressed her back against it. The wind outside howled louder now, the storm raging across the hill. And over the sound of thunder, she thought she heard something else. Two tiny voices whispering right outside her door. She'll stay. Morning sunlight broke through the fog like golden knives cutting across the mansion's cold marble floors. Clara barely slept. The whispers, the piano, the portrait. It all felt like a dream she couldn't wake from. When she entered the kitchen, the housekeeper, Mrs. Harlow, was already there, quietly preparing breakfast. A stout woman with tired eyes, she avoided Clara's gaze. Rough night? She asked without looking up. Clara hesitated. Just the wind, I suppose. Mrs. Harlow gave a short, humorless laugh. The wind, yes. That's what we all said, Clara frowned. We? The woman finally turned. The others. The ones before you. It was then Clara noticed a small bulletin board in the corner, filled with old notes, schedules, grocery lists, and faded photos. She stepped closer. There were pictures of previous nannies, each pinned neatly beside the date they were hired. But several spots were empty, the photos torn away, leaving only jagged edges behind. What happened to them? Clara asked quietly. Mrs. Harlow went still. They left, she said flatly. Why? The woman's voice lowered. Because this house doesn't like strangers. That answer stayed with Clara all day. When the twins played in the garden, Clara wandered through the halls, her curiosity outweighing her fear. Something inside her whispered that this mansion was hiding something buried beneath years of silence. Later that afternoon, as she unpacked her suitcase, she found a small wooden box tucked beneath the bed. It was covered in dust, as if untouched for years. Inside lay a few folded papers, letters, diary pages, and a child's drawing of the twins holding hands with a tall woman. The handwriting on one note caught her eye. If anyone finds this, leave before they make you play. She talks to them through the mirror. Clara's hands trembled as she turned the page. The last entry was smeared with ink and panic. Don't say goodnight after dark. Don't let them near the piano. Don't look into the mirror. Her breath caught. It was signed some more. She remembered the name. It was on one of the missing photos from the kitchen board. Anna Moore, the nanny who vanished without collecting her pay. Just then a soft giggle drifted from the doorway. The twins stood there holding hands, smiling sweetly. What are you reading, Miss Clara? Lila asked. Nothing, darling. Just some old notes. Sophie tilted her head. You found her box. Clara's heart skipped. Whose box? The girl's smile didn't waver. Anna's. She didn't like our games. A chill crawled up Clara's spine. How do you know about Anna? Lila looked toward the mirror behind Clara. She told us. Clara turned. But the reflection staring back at her wasn't smiling. That evening the mansion felt heavier, as if the air itself thickened around Clara. Every sound echoed longer than it should have. Every shadow seemed to stretch too far. After dinner, the twins sat cross-legged on the carpet in their playroom, a grand space filled with dolls, toys, and a small piano near the window. The setting sun poured in orange light, giving the room a dreamy glow that somehow felt wrong. Do you want to play with us, Miss Clara? Lila asked. Clara smiled, trying to keep things normal. Of course. What are we playing? Sophie clapped her hands. It's called the goodbye game. Clara hesitated. The goodbye game? The girls nodded eagerly. It's easy. We ask questions and you have to answer honestly. If you lie. Lila paused, her voice lowering to a whisper. She knows. Who knows? Clara asked softly. The twins exchanged a glance. Our mother, Sophie said, pointing toward the tall mirror on the opposite wall. Clara's throat tightened. It was an old mirror framed in silver, its surface slightly warped with age. For a moment she thought she saw something move behind her reflection, a soft shimmer like breathing fog. Still, she didn't want to frighten them. All right, she said carefully. Let's play, the girls grinned. Question 1, Lila began. Have you ever lied to a child? Clara chuckled. Of course. Every grown-up has. Wrong answer, Sophie said quickly. You should have said yes and I'm sorry. Clara blinked. It means the same thing. The twins shook their heads in unison. Not to her. The air in the room turned colder. The light outside dimmed faster than it should have. A soft hum filled the space. Faint, almost like a woman's voice singing far away. Sophie continued. Second question. What are you most afraid of? Clara hesitated, her smile fading. Losing someone I love. The twins smiled approvingly. That one's true. Then Lila asked the final question. Do you believe in ghosts? Clara laughed nervously. Not really, the mirror's surface rippled. For a split second, Clara saw a figure. The silhouette of a woman in white standing just behind the twins. When she blinked, it was gone. Sophie leaned closer and whispered, She doesn't like when people lie. A thunderclap shook the house. The lights flickered, then went out. The twins screamed with laughter, spinning around the dark room, their pale dresses glowing faintly in the lightning flashes. Clara grabbed a candle and lit it quickly, her hands shaking. All right, that's enough for tonight, she said firmly. The twins stopped instantly. Their smiles vanished. But we didn't say goodbye yet, Lila whispered. You must always say goodbye before dark, Clara forced a smile. Good night, girls. Sophie tilted her head. Not good night, she corrected softly. Goodbye. The candle flame flickered. Behind Clara, the mirror pulsed once, as though something inside had heard them. The next morning, the mansion felt colder. Even with sunlight spilling through the curtains, the air clung to Clara's skin like damp mist. She couldn't shake the memory of the mirror, how it had shimmered as if something inside was watching. The twins were unusually quiet at breakfast. They didn't laugh. They didn't argue. They just sat there staring down at their plates, humming that same soft tune Clara had heard the night before. A lullaby, one that made the room feel wrong. After the meal, Mr. Alden appeared, his face pale, eyes tired as though he hadn't slept in days. Stay out of the west hallway, he told Clara suddenly. There's nothing there you need to see. She nodded politely. But inside, curiosity burned stronger than fear. That afternoon, while the twins napped, Clara decided to clean. She wandered the halls with a dustcloth in one hand and her thoughts spinning. The west hallway waited like an unopened secret, long, narrow, and strangely colder than the rest of the house. Halfway down, she saw it. A heavy oak door at the very end, locked, its handle wrapped in faded red ribbon. Above it hung an old oil painting covered in dust. She wiped the frame gently. It showed a woman in a white gown holding a mirror, her face half hidden in shadow. The inscription below read, Margaret Alden, beloved wife and mother. Clara's pulse quickened. This was the twins' mother. She tried the doorknob. Locked. But as she turned to leave, she heard it. A faint sound from the other side. A music box, playing the same haunting lullaby. Her hand trembled as she bent down and saw the keyhole glinting faintly. She couldn't explain why she did it, but she pressed her ear against the wood. Soft whispers drifted through. 2 voices. And a third, lower one, calm, motherly, almost soothing, then silence. And a whisper right against the keyhole, Clara. She stumbled back, her heart pounding. The door was still locked, but someone, or something, had spoken her name. Later that evening, while helping the girls dress for bed, she noticed a strange doll sitting on the dresser. It wasn't there before. Porcelain skin, glass eyes, blonde hair, and it looked eerily like her. Where did you get this? She asked. Sophie smiled. From the room Daddy said not to open. Clara froze. How did you get in there? Lila giggled. We don't need doors. Before Clara could speak, the lights flickered again. The doll's eyes seemed to glint, following her every move. That night, Clara returned to the hallway. The red ribbon on the doorknob was gone. The lock hung open, and from inside, the faint glow of candlelight spilled across the floor. Clara stood frozen at the threshold of the west hallway, her candle trembling in her hand. The once locked door now hung slightly open, a thin slice of golden light spilling across the dark marble floor. She swallowed hard, then stepped inside. The air was cold, unnaturally cold. Dust floated in the candlelight like drifting snow. The room looked like a shrine or perhaps a graveyard of memories. On the walls hung portraits of the same woman, Margaret Alden, the twins' late mother. Her eyes seemed to follow Clara wherever she moved. The room smelled faintly of lavender and smoke, as if someone had recently been there. At the center stood a cracked mirror, draped with torn red ribbons. Beneath it, arranged neatly on a table, were porcelain dolls, each one resembling a different nanny. Different hair, different eyes, different dresses, but all with the same terrified expression frozen on their faces. Clara's breath caught. She recognized one, the last nanny, Anna Moore. A tiny name tag rested beside the doll. Before she could process it, the door creaked. Mr. Alden stood there, his face pale as ash. "I told you not to come here," he said quietly. His voice shook, not with anger but fear. Clara turned to him. "What is this place? What's happening in this house?" He stepped closer, his eyes hollow. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me," she whispered. He exhaled slowly. "When my wife Margaret was alive, she was obsessed with perfection, with keeping youth, with never losing her daughters no matter what." His voice cracked. She studied things she shouldn't have. Old rituals, mirrors that were said to hold the soul's reflection. Clara's stomach tightened. "You're saying she found a way to trap herself inside the reflection," he said bitterly. "At least that's what she believed. The night she died, lightning struck this very room. The mirror shattered. And since then, the twins haven't been the same." He sank into a chair, covering his face. "Sometimes they call her name. Sometimes she answers." Clara looked back at the mirror. The candlelight flickered across its cracked surface. For a moment she saw movement. A woman's silhouette behind the glass, faint and trembling. Then two smaller shapes appeared beside her. The twins. Her pulse raced. They talked to her," she whispered. Mr. Alden nodded. "She's part of them now. That's why no nanny lasts. Margaret doesn't let them go." Clara's voice trembled. "And if I try to leave?" He looked up, eyes filled with dread. "She won't let you either." A soft hum filled the air. The same lullaby again. It came from the mirror this time. Slow, haunting, and heartbreakingly familiar. Then two tiny hands pressed against the glass from inside. Lila and Sophie's voices whispered together. "Mommy says you can't leave yet." The storm arrived without warning. Thunder rolled across the valley, shaking the windows of the mansion like a living heartbeat. Rain slammed against the glass, lightning flashing white across the hilltop, illuminating the vast, haunted house that had kept its secrets for far too long. Clara stood in the west hallway, candle in hand, her reflection flickering in the cracked mirror before her. Behind her, the twins stood side by side, pale faces calm, eyes glimmering in the candlelight. "She's waiting," Sophie whispered. "For who?" Clara asked. Lila smiled faintly. "For you." The mirror began to hum. The red ribbons trembled, rising as if moved by invisible wind, and then she appeared. A woman's figure, faint but unmistakable, formed within the glass, long hair flowing, white gown rippling as if underwater. Margaret Alden. Her eyes glowed with sorrow and fury all at once. "Give them back to me," the reflection whispered. Her voice was layered, one part human, one part echo, one part something ancient. Clara shook her head, backing away. "They're not yours anymore." The mirror pulsed violently, glass vibrating with each word. "They are mine, my blood. I promise." The twins stepped forward, their hands outstretched toward the mirror. "Mommy, we want to go home." Clara's voice broke. "This is your home." But the girls didn't turn. They kept walking slowly, entranced by the glow. Then Clara understood. Margaret wasn't just haunting them. She was pulling them back in. The storm outside roared louder, the whole mansion trembling. She could feel the energy, the air crackling like electricity. And deep within her, Clara made a choice. She grabbed the candlestick from the table and smashed it against the floor. Flames leapt across the old carpet, licking the drapes. The twins screamed. "Clara, what are you doing?" "I'm ending this," she cried, her eyes fixed on the mirror. "If she wants me, she can have me, but not you." She ran forward, wrapping her arms around both girls, pulling them away from the glass. The reflection reached out, a pale hand pressing through the surface inches from Clara's face. For a second, she saw her own reflection overlapping with Margaret's, their eyes merging, their breaths sinking. Then, the mirror shattered. A deafening crack filled the air, shards of glass flying like sparks. A scream echoed, not human, not earthly, and the flames surged higher, devouring the room in a blinding glow. Clara pushed the twins toward the door, shouting for them to run. They vanished into the smoke, crying out her name. The last thing Clara saw before the ceiling collapsed was the reflection of the woman in white, smiling softly, almost peacefully, as if finally set free. Outside, lightning struck the roof. The mansion burned through the night, visible for miles across the valley. By dawn, the house on the hill was nothing but blackened ruins and ashes. When the fire finally died, only silence remained. The mansion was gone, but the twins were safe. No one ever found Clara's body. Yet sometimes, when the wind howls over the ashes, the girls say they hear her voice whisper, "I told you, my darlings, I'd never leave."